Hi, I'm Parneet Jaggi, and in this ninth lecture in the series of lectures on T.S.Eliot's The Wasteland, I'm going to be talking about the form and structure of the poem The Wasteland. Now, there have been several opinions about the form and structure of the poem, and it cannot be concluded as to what exactly is the structure of the poem, but we cannot call it flat or we cannot call it round either, but now it has been agreed that it has a spiral structure. So let's discuss the kinds of strategies used in the structure of the poem in detail. Now, as we look at this figure, we find that the form of the structure has used several techniques in it. Like we have the mythical method. The poet has used several myths from the ancient past. Then there is the kaleidoscope, then there is the alchemy, the labyrinth, the film technique, and the collage technique. So let's talk about these ingredients in brief. Now, what is the mythical method? When we look at the poem, we see that the careful study of the poem leads us to an inference that there is a thin and subtle thread which runs throughout the poem and gives it a sort of unity. And this thread is the mythical thread, which is kind of a unifying link of the poem. And Tiresias is one such mythical character who unifies the poem from the beginning to the end. Now, what is the mythical method? Let me read it for you. The presentation of experience in symbolic form. Now, for Eliot, the mythical method was a means of revitalizing poetry, because Eliot by now had denounced the kind of style that romantics were following. So he wanted to restyle the kind of poetry that was being written. So he introduced this immense use of the mythical links. In the poem The Wasteland, Tiresias, as we know, is an important unifying link as a character. He can be called as a protagonist, as a spectator, as a speaker, as a narrator, but as a character he imparts a sense of unity to the poem as a whole. And through the stream of consciousness method, he reflects on the events of the past as well as the present and relates a lot of resemblance between them. Now, myths here are a means of manipulating a continuous parallel between contemporariness and antiquity. So this is what I just said, that Tiresias is used to make a parallel between the contemporary stories and the antiquity that he has shared through the past allusions. Then we have a collage. Now, what is a collage? Collage is a work composed of bringing together two or more disparate realities. When we have different realities, but they are brought together on one chart together, so that we are able to see, visualize, picturize, and understand the relationship between two or three different pictures, it is called a collage. A new relationship is enacted between low culture and high culture. Now, for example, in one of the sections of The Wasteland, we have, in a game of chess, we have a woman from high society and a woman from low culture society, Lil, in which a parallel is drawn between the two kinds of the societies of the contemporary times. Plus, a parallel is drawn between the present and the past, getting the past allusions, the antique allusions from the ancient cultures also, to form a juxtaposition of the two. Through this collage, we use irony and contrast, and the end result is discomfort, paradox, and enigma. Of course, through the collage, like The Wasteland, we do not feel comfortable. It is painful, it is paradoxical, it is confusing, and at times it is baffling also. Coming to the next form of strategy, alchemy is used. Now, what was alchemy? Alchemy is an early proto-scientific practice combining elements of chemistry, physics, astrology, arts, semiotics, metallurgy, medicine, and mysticism. When reading a book on alchemy, the reader must read over the words to figure out the way to follow, decoding the secret text to discover its true meaning. Now here, this is exactly what we have to do with Eliot's text on the wasteland. We have to go back to history, we have to go back to mythology, we have to look into Eliot's notes on the poem also, and we have to look over the words, because his words, his symbols and his mythical stories, allusions are not just direct stories, but they are implied stories. So we have to kind of alchemize, we have to read over the words, over the allusions to find the correct meaning or the message. Then we have labyrinths. Now labyrinth is like, it suggests going on a pilgrimage to discover something about ourselves and God. And it implies losing one's way and having to start from the beginning all over again. Now labyrinth is like a maze, a bhul bhulaiya, where we are moving from one direction to another, but towards the middle of our journey we find or we feel or we sense that there is something wrong with this journey, and we may have to go back again and start the journey all over again. So while we read the wasteland, we feel at times that it is broken at several places, and we may have to start the text again, or we may have to start the section again, or we may have to consult his notes. So it is like a bhul bhulaiya, a maze where we have to move here and there to get to the right point. Then we have kaleidoscope. Now kaleidoscope has a wide range of pictures which may be fragmented. So kaleidoscope is a tube of mirrors containing loose colored fragments. The viewer looks in one end and light enters the other end, reflecting off the mirrors. Now with regard to T.S.Eliot's Wasteland, we see that every now and then we are surrounded by fragments. We do find a unified link, but still we find small colored pieces, small colored fragments of characters, of stories, of symbols, of allusions, of anecdotes, of incidents, and of the real pictures of our society. So it is like light coming from the other end, and when we watch the colors, we watch the episodes, they reflect different colors at different times. So we may have a problem in analyzing and interpreting the poem as such. Then there is the technique of film technique, also called montage, which is made up of images that are edited together to create an emotional reaction from the viewer. Can be used to document reality, captures the dynamism and chaos of the modern age. Now here in this technique we see that Eliot follows the montage technique in representing scenes from the ancient world and modern life. We see him building up a sequence of pictures from one part of the scene rather than giving a scene from beginning to end. So he will keep going back and forth like we use the flashback technique. This is called montage in technical language. For example, in the first section there is the story of Mary, the German princess. Now she goes out to a restaurant for coffee. Then she starts recalling her infancy and her childhood when she used to ride on a sled in the mountain. Now there is no logical connection between one picture and another. There is no uniform time sequence. One picture fades out, the next picture comes. So we have to go with that technique with a very intelligent and a very focused mind. Now when we talk directly about the structure of the wasteland, after discussing the form of the wasteland, structure of the wasteland has been discussed world over, whether it is linear or circular or progressive. Now I have a view by Helen Gardner, who writes, "We are not, however, moving in a circle, but on a spiral up and down." Similarly, I.A. Richards calls it music of ideas. Now when we talk of spiral, we notice that in each section with each symbol and image, the theme repeats itself. If we call it linear, so we are proceeding to in a one straight line to one dot which ends somewhere. But no, when we call it circular, that means we end where we started, but no, it's not happening. So they say, the critics agree to this, that it is spiral, which each symbol and each image is being repeated with the theme and in each section. So when we talk of the spiral structure, now time and again he is talking of the evils of modern civilization, the denigration of the modern civilization, but he is also progressing slowly. He is progressing in the form of symbols. He is progressing in the form of remedies. So we cannot say that it stops at a particular place, but it is moving ahead also, but it is also going round and round. For example, the central theme of the poem, which goes round and round, remains birth, death, rebirth, birth, death, rebirth. However, we also notice that there is some kind of forward movement. For example, in the beginning, the poet refers to the desert and the rock, but towards the end of the poem, there are clouds, there is hope of rain. And he comes out with a remedy from the Prajapati, from the Indian civilization. So we see that by using the tools of myths, irony, contrast, he is proceeding in a particular direction. Therefore, I conclude with my opinion that yes, the poem has a set pattern and a purpose. And he has shown how periods of spiritual barrenness and decadence have been followed by periods of rebirth and generation. Similarly, he feels optimistic that the situation in our modern wasteland is also not without hope. So this was my interpretation about the form and structure of the poem, The Wasteland. Now, for the convenience of the students, I have a list of questions that might be easy handling for the examinations. I'll just read them out. Now, these are the important questions that can be extracted from the text and for which the students have to be prepared. How far is the wasteland an expression of the disillusionment of the post-war generation? How far is it correct to say that the wasteland is a vision of desolation and spiritual drought? The Wasteland is still the most influential poem of our age. Nothing else so truly reflects the age and redeems it. Discuss. Myth serves as an organizing principle in the structure of the wasteland. Do you agree? Explain and analyze the imagery used to portray modern life in the wasteland. Do you agree with the statement, the structure of the wasteland is not progressive but circular? Justify. So I hope this series of lectures, 9 lectures on the phenomenal work of T.S.Eliot, The Wasteland, should be of some help to my students. I wish you best of luck for this work. Keep working, keep progressing. Thank you for now.